What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Happy New Year. Happy 2022. And thank you for joining me, guys. I'm so excited to be back with you again this year. Thank you for everybody who supported me last year. I made it all the way up to 100 subscribers. And yes, I am hyped for every last one of y'all. All right. So anyway, let me just get right into what I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm going to make this one a little short one, okay? So a few topics with this whole like COVID-19 stuff that's going on, this Omicron or all this stuff. So number one, the CDC has put out guidelines that, people can return back to work. Basically, if you don't have any symptoms, you could return back to work in 5 days, and you don't need a negative test. And everybody's losing their minds, right? Like the Joker. And like they're like, oh, they need negative tests to come back. And the CDC said, nah, they don't. And now Fauci told them, well, yeah, maybe we should add negative tests for them to come back. Fauci, what is up with you, man? Like, you know better. You should know better, because if I know, then you know. You cannot ask somebody for a negative test after they tested positive, all right, in 5 days. You can't do it, because there's a high probability that if a person tested positive, that in 12 weeks, before 12 weeks, they'll continue to test positive. So you may never receive that negative test from that person. So, and then with the antigen tests, a lot of those positives, if you're not symptomatic, in the Department of Health, when I was working there, they considered antigen tests without symptoms to be a probable positive. Obviously, for like COVID numbers, case numbers, they didn't do probable positives, but they just called it a positive so we could shoot the numbers up. But for us, they told us like, that's a probable positive. That person's probably not positive, because these tests are not 100% accurate. They're not. They're simply just not. So they know that. And when I was working in the Department of Health, people would call, like if people were working at long-term care facilities, and then their boss, they would test positive, and then they would go on isolation for 14 days. And the boss would say to them, you need to come back with a negative test before you can come back to work. We would have people call and be like, my test is still coming up positive, but I quarantined for 14 days and they won't let me come back in to work. We would have to call the facility and say, this person has to be allowed to come back to work, because you wasn't supposed to ask them for a test before 12 weeks anyway. Once they completed their quarantine, that was it. So this whole 5-day thing, there's nothing really that new about it. It's not even like the science changed or anything. We know that. But a lot of CEOs of big companies such as Delta was complaining that they didn't have enough staff. So then this is how this happened. Now, which brings me to my next point. It's funny how now you guys can talk about, well, we just want to be able to put people on quarantine for as long as they can tolerate it. You care now? Or Fauci saying, well, we need to make sure like we're doing this a way where society can continue to run and we don't mess up the economy. And so now I have to wonder, is this like a political thing? Because this year y'all really worried about not messing up the economy, but back in the other administration, y'all didn't give a daggone. And I'm just trying not to curse. Y'all didn't care. Y'all didn't care, and we shut down. And now you guys are talking about not messing up the economy. How many people lost their businesses in 2020? And, restaurants, mom and pop restaurants, how many people lost their businesses? And y'all didn't care, and everything was shut down. Knowing that's not how you can't stop a spread of a virus. And they sold that lie. And they continue to sell more lies. Like they say, listen, the vaccine, you're still going to get sick. But hey, to stop you from going to the hospital, so still continue to get boosted. I am old enough to remember when this was a 98.9% chance of survival of COVID-19. I'm old enough to remember when not everybody went to the hospital. Omicron is really supposed to feel like a cold, this variant, right? So they sell that lie and they say, oh, well, that's why everybody should still get vaccinated. But I thought that the vaccine was supposed to get everybody back to normal and stop the spread. That's what y'all sold in the beginning of 2020. And now that's not happening. I know a lot of people who got vaccinated so that they could still be with grandma because they didn't want to pass COVID to their grandmother, who wanted to go back to some sort of normalcy. I didn't rush and do that. Because I knew, because that's not why I'm ever going to get vaccinated anyway, to have normalcy. No, I always say my normalcy is not in the hands of Anthony Fauci or the CDC or anything like that. Because these regulators, they just make it up as they go, knowing well enough that they're saying the wrong thing. So now it's like, oh yeah, the vaccine stops hospitalization. What about what happened to stopping the spread? What happened to that herd immunity we were supposed to get? wait a minute, what happened to everything that was promised? People still have to get tested to even get on a plane, mask, all this. The fabric of reality has been destroyed, and nobody's saying anything about this. All the promises, people who were loyal, who did what y'all asked them to do, nobody's saying anything about the change of the promise, and everybody's just going along with it. And then people get mad at you if you say something about the vaccine. How do you still, I guess you still believe in it because you're still trying to hold on to some sense of it's going to get better. You need to understand that your reality, your not even just your reality, your freedom, your normalcy, your mental health, it is not in the hands of these people because they don't care. They don't. Because they made promises and promises, and the goalpost just keeps going further and further up. Anywho, last thing I wanted to talk about was I noticed that when people are ready to make their point about this jab, or maybe something they don't like about this jab, they don't trust, they start off, or, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. And I asked, why do people say that? And somebody told me well, that's just my way of saying, I come in peace. I think that not everybody says it like that, but people say that. And I'm like, it's a waste of time to say it, because number one, you give the person who you talking to, you give them too much credit. You give them too much power. It's you complying, hey, accept what I'm saying to you because I'm not an anti-vaxxer. You shouldn't have to me, I feel like it's I have to tell you that, I don't take this certain label in order for you to hear. So now what I have to say makes sense. Even if you have a person here who is what people call an anti-vaxxer, I don't know. To me, it's what does that matter? If that person has a reason to feel that way about vaccines. Because a lot of what we're seeing now with this jab this isn't really new for anybody who's really been in the movement talking about jabs. Because a lot of people who get called anti-vaxxers are parents who've seen encephalitis residual injuries from their child, and they just want other people to have informed consent before they give the shot to their kid, and they call these people anti-vaxxers. They wanted to have people get informed consent, and they gave them this label that is demonizing just because they wanted informed consent. Now, I'm going to make it clear. Every vaccine insert, like measles, the Pneumovax, whatever, in the insert, there's a chance of a person getting encephalitis. You know what encephalitis is? It's brain swelling. Okay? So imagine the brain swells, and then now you see your child or anybody getting a fever, having seizures and everything. So by the time your brain is not supposed to swell, by the time it comes back down to a normal size, you done had some serious brain injury that now you have a child who has a residual from that brain injury, who continuously had seizures. You have residual from that, where now they're not developing in the way that they should be. And so, okay, we won't call it autism, but it's a brain injury residual, one that I will discuss in further detail with another video. But the point that I'm making is that person, those people, they just want other people to know that, hey, just so you know, there's a chance that such and such can happen. So now you can make a risk to benefit decision. But they named them anti-vaxxer, like it was a demonizing thing. And then you come and you talk about the COVID-19 jab that you don't trust. Hey, you have your reasons, right? You're called an anti-vaxxer too, because that's what the definition is. Now, if you have a problem with one vaccine, you're an anti-vaxxer, but you don't feel like you are. That's how these people probably felt, right? I don't see the need to say, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, so it's okay, you can listen to what I'm saying, all right? Just make your point. Because if a person wants to deem you any label, this is why I don't do labels, but if they want to deem you any label, anti-vaxxer, far-right, Nazi, whatever label they want to give you, they're going to give it to you regardless. They are. I have talked to people about things. I've given information about things, shown facts, and then I've been called a coon. I'm not going to walk up to somebody and be like, I'm not a coon, so listen to what I'm saying. I'm not going to do it. This is the information. If you want to take it, you want to take it. If you don't, you don't. You can think of me whatever you want. I stand by the facts that I have here. That's just how I feel about it. I get why people, I'm hearing why people do it. I can understand where you're coming from. I'm just saying I think that people should shy away from saying that, because you give these people, whoever you're talking to, whoever you felt like you needed to say that to, you give them a right to hear it. They don't. That doesn't matter. You're making a sensible point. You make the point. They're gonna receive it. They're gonna receive it. If they're not, they're not, and that's it. You know. Anyway, all right, guys. So I have a lot more videos coming. So just wanted to drop this little one off here, and I'll see you guys at the next one. All right. Bye.